Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning, and you're looking live at PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to carry. It's Thursday. We have our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, will join us here in just a second if you missed it. Gators will be playing for a national title in the national championship series, either against Wake Forest or LSU. They have to play a deciding game tonight, and that series will start Saturday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gators sit very nicely right now with both pitchers ready to roll, and LSU and Wake are both throwing their aces tonight to try to get to the national championship series. So congratulations to the Gators for doing what they've done. It's been a great spring. I mean, when you think about Gator, golf wins the national title, track wins the national title, women's track is a runner-up. And worst case scenario, this Gator team will be the runner-up. But I think they got a chance to win it all. Phenomenal game yesterday. Great catch by Michael Robertson. And we'll talk more about it throughout the day. But let's go to the Titan More Hotline, and we're joined by our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. Hopefully everybody's blood pressure is back to somewhat normal with all these. It seemed like almost every Gator game goes with the same script. I mean, it's 2-1, 3-2, or something like that. But man, that thing was 2-1 forever yesterday. But listen, anytime you play in a tournament, you've got to have a lot of good fortune, and Florida has A, earned it, and B, they have gotten it to be on that side of the bracket where they didn't have to deal with LSU or Wake Forest. Has been tremendous for them. Now they get some time off for that whole staff to be ready as we get ready for a Skeens and Rhett Lauder showdown tonight, the two best pitchers arguably for their teams and in their conferences to a degree. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Look, I know Wake Forest is still number one, the number one seed. Appreciate what they've done, but man, Shane, I think this could really set up well for Florida if Wake wins tonight, because you've got LSU just has ballers. I mean, those guys can just play. I don't care who's pitching; they can pitch. But still, I mean, as good as Wake is, LSU has athleticism and power to match it more.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I was talking to someone throughout the week about the College World Series. Even though Wake's the one seed, I'd much rather play them for the national title, because you just said it, Brent. When I look at Florida's lineup and I look at LSU's lineup, you got dudes that can just stroke. And I know Wake Forest has a great hitting team, but they play in a small ballpark. And maybe it's because we're not familiar with Wake Forest. We don't know their players. We know them damn guys from LSU, and they're pretty damn good. So I'm with you. I want to play the Wake Forest Demon Deacons for the national title, because I feel like we're much better than they are. Goodness, I missed this somehow. Joseph says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, Alabama's All-American third baseman has committed in transferring to the Gators. How about that, Brent? Your old squad is losing one of their best players. Kobe Shelton is coming to Gainesville. Did you know that?
That's a big pickup for Florida. He really played well and helped Alabama in their run. And the best thing about Alabama baseball right now is they have a new coach who came over from Maryland, so he will, I think, probably be able to do things for them they haven't had in a while. I mean, this guy's won the Big Ten Coach of the Year 2 years in a row, so they're getting a good one, and so is Florida.
Yes, and also Gators picked up a transfer catcher from Coastal Carolina, which that's where BT Riopelle came from. So that worked out pretty well. And then we talked about it last week as well. A stud pitcher from UCLA is transferring. So Sully will just keep adding to his program, and should be a good one for sure. Let's move forward here in your notes, Brent. The college football playoff director, Bill Hancock, is announcing his retirement. Your thoughts? I don't know if you know Bill Hancock at all. Are you surprised about this, and who possibly will take over?
I do know Bill. I've had several conversations with him, and really been impressed with what Bill has done. Bill Hancock in sports is one of the best human beings that I've ever met, and he is a very humble man. He has gone through a lot in his life. If I remember this right, he and his wife have lost a child before several years ago, and that was obviously very difficult. But he's one of these guys that he will stand and talk to you like you're the only person there, and he will give people individual attention. I don't know who's going to replace him yet. Now, he's going to stay around in a advisory role, which probably means you can do everything by phone or by Zoom while you're traveling with your family. But he is 72, doesn't really look it. But I was sad to see that. But Bill, and this needs to be said about Bill. Bill never made up the rules for the playoff. Bill was just the public relations guy, the mouthpiece for the organization as much as anything else. And whatever went on, Bill just basically supported it, and he announced it. So I was sad to see that, but at the same time, happy for him that he can step aside and enjoy life, because he has done a tremendous job. And look, he also was the full-time director for the men's Final Four. He was the first administrator of the BCS and the first director of the college football playoff. So it's rare to have a guy in that role for so many years, but he did a simply tremendous job. Frankly, starting out as a assistant sports information director at Oklahoma. So he's from the Midwest, has a lot of ties there. So sad to see him go.
This is, I mean, is this something that Greg Sankey might be interested in, or no, Brent?
That's a terrific question. You don't know. That's an interesting point. Now, I will say this too: whoever gets this job could, frankly, have a lot of power and influence in college football, depending on who it is. And I mean, Sankey, whatever Sankey did, he would do a good job with. I don't see him leaving the SEC this quickly, but again, we don't know what his life goals are necessarily and what he might want to do. So that's an astute question, which we will look forward to seeing what they want to do with this one.
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk now about a lot of teams leaving the ACC, possibly joining the SEC or the Big Ten. What do you think is going to happen there, Brent?
Pete Thamel has been talking about some of the possibilities for expansion, and I think it was kind of one of those interviews where the question was, well, if expansion goes on, and it will, remember, it's never dead, it's just dormant, where's the SEC going? And Thamel believes that they would go with North Carolina and Virginia. Now, look, again, we're playing here because we know the media rights goes through 2036. But he says, I mean, obviously everybody would like to have Notre Dame, but that probably is not going to happen, at least for right now. So Thamel's saying North Carolina and Virginia, they're not great. Now, look, let's be honest about this. They're not great football powers. But again, you make decisions like this not based totally on football, but what they can also bring to you in basketball and in baseball and brand, and also in the population where they're at. And you've probably been in that area a few times, Shane. But in that North Carolina, Virginia area, there's a tremendous population that goes along with that. And I can tell you another thing that makes them very desirable would be is the SEC presidents would want them in chancellors, and that's who makes these decisions. And the academics for both these schools have a lot to do with that, because both these schools were in the there's association. I think it's AAU. I forget the acronym for it sometimes, but it's a prestigious academic situation, and presidents love those schools who can come in. Not saying that's going to happen anytime soon, or if it will happen at all, but that is out there, so we just wanted to mention it.
Yeah, we got a couple of texts on the Titanamore text line. Chris from Mayaka sent a picture. I don't know if people saw it yesterday. I'm sure it was all over Twitter. Brent, I think you actually sent it to me as well.
Yes.
It's a picture of Sully at batting practice. We're walking out of the hotel with an orange T-shirt on. On the back of it, it says, "Yes, I can count to 6." That goes to show you, because Sully's not that kind of guy that likes to joke around.
Yeah.
It shows you, in my opinion, how comfortable he is with this crew, this team.
Yes.
And I thought it was great on Sully's part to do that. Chris from Cottondale on the Titanamore text line says, "Always been a supporter of the coaches, being one myself, but can't you argue that if Sully brings in Neely for 2 innings with the lead, he's going all in to hold on to the lead for the win? Why doesn't he bring in Robertson with Neely so we can shore up the outfield?" I thought he did do that. Or maybe I don't know, Robertson came in the last inning. I don't remember the whole scenario. I knew when we had the leadoff double by was it Wyatt Langford? Somebody we had, no, it was, anyway, when we had the double with nobody out, I knew he was pinch hitting to get a bunt down. I can't remember who we brought in, but it didn't work out. Because he was going to go try to get that guy to third. It all worked out with the hit by Cade Curl and the infield hit. So anyway, I can't remember, Chris. I've had too many concussions. I can't remember what happened.
I think that the situation he's talking about there is when it was 2-1 and TCU tied the game. Shane, you remember that in the outfield, the ball went over their head.
Wyatt was playing center field. He's normally playing left field. But let me tell you something. I don't think that had anything to do with who's a better defensive player. I think our depth in the out. You got to remember, this is a big ass ballpark, and not a whole lot of balls are getting hit over people's heads. So I think we were misaligned. But I hear what he's saying. I kind of agree with him.
Sure.
Right, Josh,
and the wind, and the wind was blowing in, to your point too.
Yeah. Josh from Mississippi on the Titanamore text line says, "Brent, how many recruits do you expect to commit to Florida by the end of June? Also, I heard Jeremiah Smith is waiting to see how the passing game looks this year before a possible flip. Have you heard that?"
A little bit of it. And again, by the end of June, I don't.
That's like next week.
Yeah, well, it's true. Good point. I mean, let me grab their list here. Yeah, they've got, what I'm looking at on Rivals, they've got 17 total commitments at this point. Now, again, a lot of that, and it's a good question, will be determined by how many that they can give out. That's a thing that we've got to check on, is do they have the full complement of 25, or are they going above that, or do they need to stay around 20th? So, I mean, at this point, with another weekend coming up, I mean, you've got to think they're going to add what, Jane? Let's be conservative here, maybe even 2 or 3. Yeah. So, let's just say maybe 20 by the end of June. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think they have a very good chance of getting the kid that's committed to the wide receiver that's committed to Ohio State. I just have a good hunch on that. So we shall see. Before we move on here, Ruzoga State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. Speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titan MR hotline. Let me get this Facebook Live question here from Tony, brought to you by Mellon. He says, is anybody else worried that the offense, if the offense isn't creative enough and explosive enough this year, it may dismantle a lot of the recruiting that's been done? I don't think I've heard enough about how creative, explosive it's going to get to compete in the SEC. I don't think there's any concern there. Look, the offense will be better than it was last year.
Yeah,
I think
yes.
it's going to be way more consistent. I think Graham Mertz is going to be a perfect fit for what they're going to do, and it doesn't mean they're going to run the ball 70 times a game. People, they're going to throw the football. He will be just fine. He will be just fine. So I just again, I ask all these people because they get so enamored just with the quarterback. I get it. But this team is going to be so much better across the board that it's going to allow them to win a lot more games. Daniel says, when the shortstop for TCU slipped on the throw to give us the go-ahead run in the ninth, I knew it was a team of destiny. Yeah, he kind of he was off balance on that throw. So, all right, Brent, let's move on. Let's go to the let's go around the SEC. We'll start down here for a lot of our people that say we don't get to some of the teams. We'll start with the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Yeah, I'll hit a note or two on all these teams, and we'll try to be brief, and we'll cover as many as possible. Now, the point that I have gotten this week about South Carolina, speaking of recruiting, is they're doing a lot more recruiting. And this is kind of the point we brought up a few minutes ago with Virginia and North Carolina. In this Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, this is known as a DMV, and folks who live around that area can explain that more than we can. But there's a lot of talent. There are a lot of people in that area, and they have signed some five-star guys like Nicholas Harbor from D.C., a defensive end Desmond Umazula from Maryland, in the 23 class. So the point is that they're making good headway in those areas. That's going to be important. They also got a recent verbal from Fred J.R. Johnson, who's a promising linebacker from Norfolk, Virginia. So again, that Virginia area, and again, Shane, I don't know how much you've been in that area as far as, and know guys who are coaching up there or whatever, but that is a talent-rich area, to say the least.
Yeah, and my alphabetical order was terrible. We left off the Tennessee and the Texas A&M. So what's going on? We're not even going to talk about Vanderbilt. Tell me what's going on with the Aggies. I still think the Aggies are going to be the surprise team in the West.
I think that could happen, and now a lot of it's going to depend on their defense with what they do and how much they're going to improve. They were really good against the pass. Jalen Jones and Tariq Chappell were very good in the secondary, but people ran all over them, and they're hoping this rotation of McKinley Jackson, Walter Nolan, and Gabe Denny and DJ Hicks in the middle will help them with that. So, and can they get pressure on the quarterbacks? And I mean, Diggs was their leading sack guy last year, and he only had 3. So that tells you something about what they need to improve on. Look, I'm with Shane with this. I think A&M could be very, very good, particularly offensively. We don't have time to go into all of it, but they got maybe the best wide receiver room in the league. And they've got 2 competent quarterbacks. You know they'll find running backs. So this could be a very, very good football team also. So keep that in mind as you think about the Aggies.
Yeah, what's going on anything new out of Tennessee up in Knoxville?
The they're recruiting very well. They got Boo Carter. He's a real good athlete out of Chattanooga. He committed live a few days ago. He's looking at Colorado, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, and Tennessee. So they're glad about that. And that was the number one in-state guy that they wanted. And let's be honest, Tennessee's a great state, but they don't have an abundance of talent, just simply because they're limited on the number of athletes they've got there. But they're recruiting well. They also got an offensive tackle, Max Anderson from Frisco, Texas. They got him up I think yesterday. He made that commitment. So some good news on the recruiting front if you're a Vol fan.
John has a question here, and I'm not even sure what he's asking. He says, Brent, how big a deal is Friday Night Lights? I'm hearing the cookout is a much bigger deal. He's got cookout like capitalized. So so he asked, could we see Friday nights going away? Friday Night Lights. I don't think so. I don't know if the cookout is some other event or it's an actual cookout where the dudes are eating sometime before Friday Night Lights. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah, well, I'm certainly familiar with Friday Night Lights. I mean, it's legendary as far as recruiting is concerned. But I've also heard a lot about, that these prospects will say, I'm trying to get there for the cookout too. So that's obviously a big deal for them. And I don't know the exact timing of it. I'm sure some of our listeners can tell us that. But I think both of them are fairly separate events, but they're close together, and they both make up either a big weekend or two consecutive big weekends.
Yeah. Ole Miss Rebels, obviously they got Austin Simmons, which I think that's good that the Gators lost out on him. Anything else going on in Oxford?
I'm a little surprised about Simmons, to be honest with you. I mean, we know that the Rebel quarterback room, they've got three of them at least that they're dealing with. So I don't know how much playing time Simmons is going to get quickly, but that's his decision. TJ Young is entered the transfer portal, and he is headed to Ole Miss, 5'11", 192. He is a defensive player, the 14th. I believe we mentioned this. This is amazing. Ole Miss has had 14 defensive players from the transfer portal since the season ended last year. He came from FAU, played with them for several seasons. So, Shane, that may be a record to bring in 14 defensive players, but for what you and I have heard about their defense, they may need every one of them, right?
And they need more, because I'm telling you right now, I watched their spring game, and it may have been some of the worst defensive play I've ever seen at the collegiate level. So we'll see if they make any changes. Pete Golden's got it. I mean, boy, he went from Alabama to Ole Miss. Oh, that's going to be tough on him. What's going on with the Missouri Tigers?
They've added a quarterback to the 24 class. Aiden Glover committed. He replaced Danny Kalen, who committed to Missouri for a few weeks. Then he went to Nebraska. When guys commit, people need to remember it's just a verbal commitment. That's all it is. But they do have a pretty good quarterback room. Brady Cook, Jake Garcia, Sam Horn, Gabari Johnson are in that quarterback room. So, but Missouri needs to have a better year this year, and it starts at quarterback.
Yes, it does. Tighten our text line. Darryl wanted to let us know that it was Dale Thomas that came in for the bunt attempt. It's amazing. It's just not the Gators. If you've been watching postseason college baseball, nobody can bunt anymore.
No, they can't. No.
It's been terrible. All right, Mississippi State's been making some noise in the state of Mississippi. They've gotten some good football players here recently.
This is a big year for Mississippi. Last year was Alabama as far as having the talent. This year was Mississippi, and they've got P.J. Woodland is a 4-star out of Hattiesburg. He's a cornerback. So that has helped. J.J. Harold, who is a 4-star out of North Panola. I mean, Shane, with your Mississippi Times, you know how much talent there is in the state of Mississippi on any given year, frankly. So good news for Zach Arnett and what they're doing there. So you get a cornerback and you also get a wide receiver.
Yes, indeed. LSU Tigers. I haven't heard a whole lot coming out of there. I mean, we talked a couple of weeks ago about the air-conditioned helmets. Have you heard anything new about that?
No, I haven't. I'm interested to see once they really get to practicing, we'll get more reports on the helmet. And again, if people haven't heard this, they've actually got a helmet that has technology in it that it keeps their head cooler. This is from a company called Tiger Air. So, and the helmets have a 5-hour lifespan. They're going to use these in practice and at the game. So, man, everybody's going to be waiting to hear reports about that. So, and speaking of LSU, the number one athlete has visited them. His name is Terry Busey. He made a surprise visit to them recently. So he's looking at Oklahoma. He's looking at LSU, among some others. Busey is from Texas, but he does love LSU. So again, as good as LSU is, a number of athletes, I wouldn't count them out for anybody.
John has a question for you, Brent, brought to you by Meldon Law. Brent, do you prefer the BCS computers or the CFP committee when it comes to selecting teams?
Well, give me the committee because I don't trust the computers, A, and then B, give me the 12-team expanded playoff any day, any time over anything with the BCS. So, I look, and we've got people who still would argue up and down and all around that we need to either go back to the BCS. So I've heard some guys say, well, we ought to go back to the AP poll. My answer to that is, we could go back to Model T Fords and also landlines and whatever else you want to do. But we're finally where we need to be is an expanded playoff. So I'm still doing cartwheels over that.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Joseph also giving another baseball update. Rumors are that Clemson's third baseman is coming to Gainesville. That means Shelton will take over for Rivera at shortstop. All right. Yeah, the Gators are going to have a ton of people coming from other schools. So get used to the transfer portal people. Kentucky Wildcats. I know we haven't gotten to SEC Media Days yet, but this time of the year, Brent, is when everybody starts giving the Kentucky the love for football. I'm not hearing it as much this year. Are you?
No, not so far. I mean, you're not seeing it in the magazines either, frankly. And maybe as it gets a little bit closer, I still think Devin Leary is going to be really good at quarterback for them. Now, their latest commitment, 6'4", 285, is Jaden LaFontant. He is from Connecticut, by the way. He was looking at Boston College and Duke and Vanderbilt. So Jaden probably is pretty smart if he's looking at all those schools, isn't he, Shane? To say the least. But he's a lineman. We'll see how he goes. But look, you and I both know, Shane, they were absolutely miserable last year on the offensive line. I don't care who they bring in at quarterback. If that line is not any better, the quarterback's going to struggle greatly, and that's what Will Levis did last year. So I think they've improved their offensive line, so that will help them considerably.
Okay, so Chris from Cottondale on the Titan Mar text line clears this up for us. They moved Friday Night Lights to the end of June because it's usually at the end of July. That is correct. And the cookout is a recruiting deal that they have at the end of July now. So basically, it's 2 recruiting weekends. One is a camp, the other is a cookout.
Right.
Appreciate that, Chris. Thanks. That's the first time I've heard of the cookout. So there you have it. We got great listeners that fill us in.
We do.
Brent.
We do.
All right. The Georgia Bulldogs. They've had a lot of turmoil in the off season. What's going on up in Athens?
Kind of a mixed bag for Georgia. Number one, Dylan Raiola, their big quarterback commitment, is moving from Arizona to Georgia to play his senior year. Now he's enrolling at Buford High School in Georgia. There are a lot of reasons for this. Now, I'm just going to read this from this report from UGA Sports. Chief among the reasons being that Raiola wants to play a full senior year. In Arizona, Raiola was facing a potential 5-game suspension due to intrastate transfer rules. So, and the other reason is they wanted to play better high school competition in Georgia than he was going to play in Arizona. I would certainly concur with that. It gets him closer to Athens, so there's a lot of reasons for that. So just want to make folks to be aware Raiola will be playing high school football in Georgia. And Raiola was in the Elite 11. Georgia had a couple of quarterbacks in that. Ryan Polinsky was also in there. We'll get into this when we have more time during the summer. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution made a report about Georgia, and they've had a lot of issues off the field. I think we all know this, but a lot of those issues involve cars, and I do think this is an offshoot of NIL. If you get a lot of money, if you're 18, 22, what's the first thing you're going to buy? And it's probably going to be a fast car. So I've had a lot of guys who have been ticketed over the last 2 or 3 years. People are aware of that. Kirby Smart's aware of it. He doesn't say much about it. But you can bet the officials at Georgia are aware of it too. So hopefully that's something they can get under control.
Yeah, and Andy mentioned earlier in the program, which I saw this. This is like Dylan Raiola's 4th school in 3 years.
Yeah,
that's kind of strange to me. So we shall see. The Florida Gators have been tearing it up on the recruiting trail, Brent.
Well, Shane and I have been talking patience for a long time here, and I think we also knew that they would skyrocket in recruiting at some point, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, they're landing some really good players. Jamonta Waller, 6'2", 225, the linebacker, again from Mississippi, Shane. So
yes, indeed. That's what we just produce athletes year in and year out, Brent.
No question. Aaron Childs. Aaron Childs from Maryland. Okay, we mentioned Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. area a few minutes ago. He's another linebacker. Amir Jackson is a 4-star athlete out of the state of Georgia. Notice where he comes from. He's 6'4", 223 out of Portal, Georgia. 4-star prospect. Look, and there's more to come, I can assure you that. So again, people need to understand he has had to cobble this together with gum and baling wire, particularly after the previous staff was there in recruiting, and they're slowly getting it done and preparing for the future. So look, if they had 5 commitments and really nothing was going on, you would have to be concerned about that. I don't think you've got to be concerned about this anymore. But again, we've got to realize this is not happening overnight, and they've got to get these guys developed and go from there. But you bring in talent, that's number one, and they're doing that in spades right now.
Yes, they are. This is pretty funny. Regarding your comments on Georgia, the first thing you do when you get a lot of money, kids go buy a car. a fast car. Tony says on
Yeah.
Facebook Live, the first thing that he would buy is an ad on my program. And that would be money well spent, Tony.
Absolutely.
John says that the Georgia Bulldogs might, the Rayola kids playing better competition, they may realize he's no longer a 5-star.
Well, it'll be interesting to see after his senior year where that goes. That's a very solid point. Yes.
Yeah, at Chris Storing Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Storing Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. A few more minutes with Brent Beaird on the Titanmore Hotline. Auburn Tigers, anything going on in the Plains?
They're recruiting well, and I think they're making some noise. Now, again, we need to realize they're not going to be particularly great this coming year, but they're getting more talent in there than they certainly had under Brian Harsin, and a much better offensive line than they had against Gus Malzahn. Now, here's their problem this year. They're going to start well. They've got UMass, Cal. They go to Cal. And Samford. And then, now get this in a row, Shane. Texas A&M on the road, Georgia at home, at LSU, and then Ole Miss. That's what they've got after their opening 3 games. So that's not going to be easy for them at all. But again, this is basically a transition year for Hugh Freeze, and let me say this, they'll be a lot better in November than they'll start at in September, particularly offensively.
Yeah, Arkansas, obviously they have KJ Jefferson back, big, strong runner, not a great thrower, but pretty good college quarterback. A couple of years ago, they turned their program around and everybody was thinking the world of Arkansas. I think there's a lot of pressure on Sam Pittman this year. I mean, he's still in the SEC West. They go 7-6 last year, but I think it's a big year for them because for whatever reason, Arkansas people think they should be winning the West. But do you see any pressure on Sam Pittman this year?
Well, a lot of last year's schedule was so tough, particularly at a conference, that caused them some problems, and they're bringing in some guys from the transfer portal that are helping. Lorando Johnson from Baylor, he's a defensive transfer that they like and think he can help them. Jacoby Criswell is a backup quarterback from North Carolina. Keep your eye on him. This guy could be really valuable with them too. They've got a backup named Fortin, Fortin, who they like too. But that's going to be a very interesting battle because we both know, Shane, KJ Jefferson can be hurt at some very inopportune times. So they're going to have a good backup. Andrew Armstrong from Texas A&M Commerce, not Texas A&M, but Texas A&M Commerce, is a wide receiver who has come in for them too. So he is promising. They're losing some guys like Jaden Hazelwood and Matt Landers to the NFL, so they've got to replenish the stock there. But I think your point's a good one. They need a lot closer to an 8-4, 9-3 this year.
All right, our last team in the SEC, the Alabama Crimson Tide. What's going on there?
Alabama's quarterback prospect, Julian Sain, was the MVP of the Elite 11. They really like this kid. He's another California kid. He's the first Alabama quarterback who won the, if you can say it that way, who was MVP of the Elite 11 since Tua was a few years ago. DJ Langway was also in the Elite 11. I understand did fine. Alabama had a defensive lineman named Jamil Burroughs that got in trouble. Now, he and some of his teammates were basically just horsing around with pellet guns in the Alabama player development. Josh Chapman, who used to be a player for Alabama, got the guns. Burroughs wouldn't give him his up. And Burroughs and Chapman got into some kind of a fracas. So Burrows is suspended for the moment. We'll see where that goes. But listen, when you're a football player and you get bored, you can really get in trouble. Shane, you've been in these football buildings. It's hard to meet. It's almost hard for me to believe, as much as they've got available for these players, that you could get bored, but sometimes they do. And unfortunately, that I think that's what happened here. So they're trying to figure that out. That there were no arrests, no charges made. But when you've got a player that gets into a dust up with one of your staff, they deal with that pretty sternly, and I think that's what's going on here.
Question for you, Brent, from John on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law. Brent, and it's a good one. Who do you expect to take the opening snap at QB for Alabama? That's an interesting QB battle.
Almost depends on the day. I still think Ty Simpson is the best quarterback, the kid from Tennessee. Jalen Milroe has gotten better, but I think Shane and I both think gotten better would have to go a long way before he was a starting quarterback. Now, Tyler Buchner, do you bring in a guy like that from Notre Dame and not play him? So, again, and I've heard Milroe's really improved, but that really means nothing to me. What really improvement would be if you show out in the two scrimmages you've got in August before you play against Middle Tennessee. So I do think, again, that Simpson will eventually be the quarterback, but I would not be surprised at all if Milroe or Buchner start against Middle Tennessee. And again, they'll play probably three quarterbacks in that game, and they need to, because the next week they play Texas. So that's going to be important to find a starting quarterback sooner than later, right, Shane?
Yes, no question about it. Let's move on before we get you out of here. Give us any updates on the semis and the Hurricanes in the ACC. I know we got a couple people that follow them.
Yeah, always glad to cover them too. Again, FSU's well thought of. They're in the top 5, top 10 in every poll with this. Love the running back room. Trey Benson, Lawrence Toafila, Rodney Hill, all those guys come back. They've got 5 offensive linemen who started games for them who are coming back. Johnny Wilson, Kentron Poitier, these are guys well over 6 feet tall. At wide receiver, so offensively, I think they're going to be very good. The other thing to keep in mind, ACC Media Days this year is not just 2 days, it's 3. I'm glad to see this. They've expanded it, so I think that's good for them to be able to see that. I think Miami's getting a little bit better too. Kevin Riley, a 4-star running back, has committed to them. He's from Tuscaloosa. You don't get many kids from Tuscaloosa, but they think Shannon Dawson's offense is going to be good. They've also added Louisville linebacker KJ Cloud that is to be transferring with them too. As I mentioned, linebacker 6'2", 229. So expect some improvement for them. I mean, you hear some pretty good stuff out of Miami, and I still maintain Miami's got as big of a rebuilding job as Florida does. People kind of lose track of that, but they've got to develop players too. So, but I will say they are making progress. And FSU is in a great position now to make a lot of noise this year to be in a top 5 team, and they'll be picked up very well, I think, in media days to win the ACC.
Yeah, I think people will, but I think people are going to be wrong, because I still think it's Clemson. I think Clemson's going to be legit.
Yep. No question. Yes.
With Cade Klubnik at quarterback and with their new offense that they're going to be running. So,
yes.
Brent, good stuff as always, my man. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week.
Good. Can't wait, bud. Take care. Thanks much.
Yep, that's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MRI hotline. He's our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. We're going to take a quick time out, come back, get to a bunch of these text messages and Facebook Lives. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Hi, this is Steve Spurrier, former head ball coach of our Florida Gators. Business is booming at our restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. So we're looking to hire 3 top quality front of the house managers and assistant managers. Restaurant talent acquisition is like building a championship football dynasty, and I'm recruiting great people to join our newest team. Thanks to the overwhelming support of people here in Gainesville, the Gator Nation, and fans of all the teams, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill is one of the busiest restaurants in the state. And with our weekend brunch buffet and our takeout options coming soon, we're looking to add a few new restaurant leaders. Everyone knows a coach sometimes is about as good as all of his talent, his players, and his assistant coaches. And if you have a restaurant management experience and are looking to work in a fast-paced, fun environment, then go to www.spurriers.com and apply today. Thank you, and go Gators.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points, where the Gators go to celebrate. With premium brands like Regal Cinemas, Prime and Pearl, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Skechers, F45, and the HBC's restaurant. Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, the #1 celebrity polished casual restaurant in America. We'll see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. Text on the Titan Mark text line from Jim. He says, Shane, who would you rather play, LSU or Wake Forest? I'd rather play Wake Forest. LSU's got a powerful lineup. But the Gators sit in a really good spot because both aces are going tonight. So hopefully they have to use a lot of pitchers, both teams, and we will see who we match up with for the championship series that starts Saturday. John says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, we know that Norvell does well in the transfer portal. Why doesn't he do better recruiting high school kids? It's a good question, John. I don't know. I think some coaches probably just put more focus on one or the other. I think if you look at Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, he doesn't really recruit a whole lot of high school players. He gets a majority of transfers. And that way you can kind of see who has produced at whatever level it is, if they can play or not. And just different philosophies. This is a good question here. Greg says, do you think having all the kids, it just went away on me, where'd it go? Here it is. Do you think having all the recruits verbally commit on or near the same date as planned by Billy? A lot of times it is. A lot of times, yes. Annie asked, Shane, when you were entering the NFL, did you ever take the Wonderlic test or any other cognitive test that teams gave you? Do you remember how you did it? I have no idea how. Yeah. So all that stuff is given to you at the combine. I'll be honest with you. I didn't put a whole lot of effort into the Wonderlic test because I just don't know what that has anything to do with playing football or any of those tests, quite honestly. They got a bunch of different ones nowadays, but none of that really, in my opinion, but my opinion doesn't go very far, has nothing to do with if you could play football or not. So, yeah, but I don't remember, quite honestly, Andy. I didn't prepare for anything. I didn't prepare real well for the combine either. Back in those days, you didn't do all that stuff. So I wish I could do it all over. Like I said, I'm bigger now than I was, and stronger than I was when I played. This day in sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. 2009, the U.S. Open at Bethpage Black. Lucas Glover, Clemson Tiger, by the way, wins his only major title. 2 strokes ahead of Ricky Barnes, David Duval, and Phil Mickelson. That's This Day in Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Silverback Concrete's a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. Again, if you missed it, Gators win in dramatic fashion. Tremendous catch by Michael Robertson. It was an unbelievable catch to seal the deal. And Kevin O'Sullivan, the Gators, I think this is the 4th time we've been in the National Championship Series. Last time we won it, or the only time we won it, 2017, we beat the LSU Tigers for the National Championship. Hopefully we'll be beating the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. But regardless, I think we can beat both of these teams. And boy, what a great spring it's been for the University of Florida athletics. Hopefully it carries over to the fall. If you missed it yesterday, JC and my Peachland Dental weekend picks for the PGA Tour event this week. I have Colin Morikawa, Ricky Fowler, Ju Young Kim, Victor Hovland, and Austin Eckroat. JC has Sepp Straka, Gary Woodland, Tony Finau, and Adam Scott, and Sahith Theegala. So that was our Peachland Dental picks. The NBA drafts tonight, if you care. Apparently that big 7'2" kid will be the first pick of the draft. I don't think we have any Gators that will be drafted. So that'll do it for today's program. Tomorrow, I'm hoping to have Johnny Wiggs, Santa Fe College head baseball coach, former Gator pitcher, on our program. He coached Tyler Shelnut. We can talk college baseball with him, and we'll have JC on as well. So we'll know tomorrow who the Gators are playing. Have a great day out there, folks, and take care.